don't want you to know what it feels like to keep all of this pain so concealed. Like I want out of this plane, I told my psych, you don't need to, you don't need to. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, the times we had, yeah. All these pleasures my brain can't have, I want out, so please don't be sad. Give it up cause I'm getting out, don't be sad, you could let it out. All the shit I'm forgetting now, my whole life I've been checking out. All I said you could send it out, light it up, now I'm headed out. This is the end of my part now, we will be never apart, no. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. Don't leave, I need you with me. Don't die, I need you alive. Don't go, don't leave me alone. You said, yeah. My entire life feels like one big mistake, and all these pills inhibit re-uptake. I can't arrive at any reason to wait. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. And I don't care cause I don't give a take. From this world so superficial and fake, in all your joys I simply cannot relate. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. I say goodbye, it's getting late now. Please don't cry, oh no, I made it out. Say goodbye before I fade out, before I fade out, before I fade out. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, times we had, yeah. Let it out, all the shit I'm forgetting now. My whole life I've been checking out. All I said you could send it out, light it up, now I'm headed out. I don't want you to know what it feels like to keep all of this pain so concealed. Like I want out of this plane, I told my psych, you don't need to, you don't need to. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, the times we had, yeah. All these pleasures my brain can't have, I want out, so please don't be sad. Give it up cause I'm getting out, don't be sad, you could let it out. All the shit I'm forgetting now, my whole life I've been checking out. All I said you could send it out, light it up, now I'm headed out. This is the end of my part now, we will be never apart, no. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. Don't leave, I need you with me. Don't die, I need you alive. Don't go, don't leave me alone. You said, yeah. My entire life feels like one big mistake, and all these pills inhibit re-uptake. give, I take from this world so superficial and fake. In all your joys, I simply cannot relate. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. I say goodbye, it's getting late now. Please don't cry, you'll know I made it out. Say goodbye before I fade out. Before I fade out, before I fade out. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been said, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, yeah. Let it out, all the shit I'm forgetting now. My life I've been checking out. All I said you can send it out. Light it up now, I'm headed out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the zoo. I'm the Rusty Panda, and I am here for you. Today we've got MK here. Whoop, 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 whoop. So,
Hello.
hello, I'm MK. Then there's an ad break in progress. Love
Howdy. Oh,
this.
perfect timing. Excellent.
I don't know how to change that. Like, how to just change. I don't know. But Aston, welcome
Oh,
on in if you're not getting ads. I know people were getting like I know the ads work like if you get an ad when you come in, like the pre-rolls,
the pre-rolls, yes.
you don't get an immediate ad after that when an ad break happens. Like they don't double you up on ads as far as I know.
Yeah, as far as I know. You can schedule when your first ad is supposed to show up. So you can slide it up to 30 minutes after your live time.
Oh, okay.
I think the default for that is like 5 minutes or something like that. It'll play the ad.
Okay, that's clearly
Uh
what just happened.
but you can slide it up to 30, and you also have the snooze buttons in case you need to hit those
Oh
to at
yeah.
least push those back a few more minutes.
That's
And then
smart.
based off your ad schedule, you can have as many ads as you need during that hour to get rid of the pre-rolls
Right.
or yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the ads thing is confusing. I think it's deliberately confusing for some folks.
Yeah.
Uh
All right. Well, let's not talk
but
about
howdy.
ads. Hi, Aston. Welcome
Hi.
on in. I'm so glad that you were able to make it. Yeah. Let me know where you derived from if you remember. I'm always interested to see since you said it's been a long time where exactly in the Twitch universe you came from. Otherwise, MK, you're here.
Yeah.
You like the color orange.
It's true. It's a combination of my two favorite colors, red and yellow.
Yeah.
But like red by itself, yellow by itself, together, the best. But when anyone
Orange.
asks me the favorite color, I'm just like, I have to pick one.
Yeah.
So I mix them together, and orange is the second place, but it's good. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Infozar. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm his mod, so that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so here we are. We're on the video game page. For those of you who have never been here before, this is Wiki Wednesday, the show where we get a streamer on, ask them 15 things they like, 5 things they don't. We go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, learning new things about them, learning new things about topics, and learning new things about ourselves. So I think that pretty much sums it up. So we've got video game as the topic here. Because one of the first things that you have is both Nintendo and Sega. So I wanted to at least start at the pinnacle of when you started playing video games and like what in your formative years, and then we'll talk about the systems themselves.
Right. So I started playing video games probably when I was 4 years old, maybe younger. Uh, but I don't remember anything before that. So like as trying to think. It was definitely before that, but I don't really remember it too well. But we had the Nintendo Entertainment System at my house, so we were playing the original Super Mario Brothers, the Tiny Toons video game, and all that other
Yes.
stuff. And I do remember one thing being told about the way that I played, because also at that time, Michael Jordan was very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and whenever he would do a slam dunk, he'd stick out his tongue. So I started sticking out my tongue to make Mario jump higher. So I'd be holding the controllers down trying to jump. And then I also kind of figured out that if I, move my tongue to the left or move my tongue to the right, uh, to influence the direction. So not only was I using my thumb to control Mario on the controller, I was digitally control like analog control psychically with my tongue through the television screen. The results may
I
vary,
was
but
gonna say,
that's
was it successful?
I in my head it worked. My 4-year-old head, it was perfect. I do remember wanting to be Super Mario for Halloween in like 1990 or whichever year Mario Brothers 3 came out. I think it was 1990. Uh, and I basically wore a
1988 is when Super Mario
1980.
Brothers came out.
Okay. All right. Then it had to have been wow. Is that okay? So I played Mario 3 even before I remembered when it came out. All right. So so what I did is we had some overalls, some Oshkosh bagosh.
Mm-hmm.
We put a hat. We cannibalized a raccoon stuffed toy. So we put some ears on the hat and we pinned the raccoon tail to my pants. And so I thought I could fly and I would run around the neighborhood. It actually took a few months for my mom to successfully get the raccoon tail off of me because I wanted to be Super Mario forever.
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah. So I enjoyed playing a lot of those games, and I had friends that had games that we couldn't have, so I'd go over to their house and play
Mm-hmm.
those games. Um, and I ever since then I've been in love with video games.
That's perfect. I love that. And I love the when you play games, like the camaraderie of video games. Like people are like, oh, it's such a solo thing, but not always. Like people are watching or people are playing and watching.
That's true. That actually reminds me of a little anecdote. You're gonna hear a ton of anecdotes,
I
by the
love
way.
them. Give me all of
Uh,
them.
so I have 6 brothers and sisters. So I have 4 brothers and 2 sisters, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm the middle child.
Okay. That makes a lot of
And
sense.
what?
I'm kidding.
Huh?
I'm totally kidding. I know barely a lot about you. You're good.
No, it's funny. The funny thing is that like all of us are all just kind of like quiet around each other now that we're adults, but apparently in our own friend groups we're the class clown.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever we're together, no one wants to clown around because that puts a target on your back. So
Yeah.
it's just so funny the dynamic completely switches. Um, but when I was younger though, like I didn't really know the rules of football, and we had the Tecmo Bowl on the NES system, which
Okay.
was the best football game at the time.
Tecmo Ball?
And
What is it?
a TECMO bowl.
Got it.
Uh, right. So we had Tecmo Bowl on the NES, and they had different versions. And I would play with them, and they would tell me to take the ball and run it into my own end zone, and then they tackle me in my own end zone, and then they would get the safety, which is bad for me, but I didn't know it was bad. They told me it was good because the cheerleaders started showing up on the screen. So they're just like, "Look at you go, you're doing it." So they would just completely obliterate me in the football game by tricking me to the running all bleh, by running the ball all the way back to my own goal, getting the safeties, and just constantly giving them 2 points, and then they scored the touchdown, and then I give them their 2 points in return.
Oh my
So,
god.
so there was a lot of bonding, I guess. I think I was the only one who was able to get far into like the Mario type games, but all the other games, we would try to play our best with or take turns or whichever. The games where we could play co-op in, which there weren't that many to believe it or not for the
Mm-hmm.
NES. Uh but like the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers game, that was very popular in a house because one person was Chip and the other person was Dale. Um, I was always Chip. My brother was always Dale. Always, so I was always a Chip fan. My younger brother was always the Dale fan, the one with the big red nose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was younger, we were able to get to Fat Cat, which is pretty impressive considering how tough that game could be. That was the final boss, but you just had to throw a red bouncy ball on his face. I don't actually remember beating it, but I remember getting to Fat Cat.
Okay. Did you like the Chip and Dale movie?
Oh, I actually yes. What's so funny about that is like right before they announced that movie, I dreamed up my own version of what the Chip and Dale cast was up to. So, uh and I was kind of close but opposite, right? We adjusted different things to how that movie imagined it versus how I imagined it would be. So like in the movie, uh Dale is the one trying to get the team back together, right? But in my version, Chip was the one trying to get the team back together, but they're like all, so it was the two different versions of washed up, like, but they were trying to get back together. So I thought it was kind of funny how many similarities there are. Um Both Monterey Jack was a recovering addict for cheese in both of them. Both mine and his, except mine was successful and has moved on. The other one was still,
Doing his
having
thing.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, well, we had a very stark difference between Gadget and Zipper. I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody, but it's not a huge spoiler that Gadget was mostly the same in the movie.
Oh, come on.
What?
33 years and a spoiler? Man, I haven't seen the
No, I'm
movie
talking about
yet.
the movie that came out on Hulu like a few years ago,
Oh,
or
okay.
Disney Plus.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought this was like the Chip and Dale from like way back when.
Oh no, 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 no. But like the one in the show from a while back versus the new movie,
Right.
those like uh those those gadgets aren't too far of a conclusion. My gadget turned into an e-girl. So and then the zipper, I don't want to spoil that. I'll keep that a
Okay.
secret.
All right. All right. Well, that's really cool that you had at least some games to play with your brothers and sisters. Were your sisters into the gaming too?
Absolutely not. It was strictly a guy thing in the house. Except for when it came to computer games. Uh that's where all the Barbie stuff
Oh,
came out, like
right.
the Barbie Wild Horse Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was also very good at that game, but I wouldn't tell anybody at that time.
Right.
But you have to, like, the game, you have to brush the horse's hair the right way. You have to ride on the pre-rendered trails, all that other stuff. I don't think we had it in the Mary Kate and Ashley games, but I'm pretty sure my little sister would have liked to play that.
Yeah, I had the Mary Kate. Is this based on the Rescue Rangers? Uh,
Yes, the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers on the screen right
oh
now.
yes. Yeah, because I was gonna say I did Barbie. It was like The Sims almost in the fact that you can dress her in whatever patterns you wanted, and like it was basically like you ever see those coloring things where they have the little tabs that you break out and you put them overneath the.
Oh,
It was
yeah, the
that.
paper walls.
Right, but it was that, but it was Barbie, and you could make, just like in Disney Dreamlight Valley, you can make your own designs and stuff and put it on her as she, like, I don't even remember what the point of the game was. I don't remember. I just remember that you could dress her up.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Go
when I
ahead.
was younger, Barbie games gross. I would only play those in secret. But now, Barbie games are cool. I'm
Yeah,
sold.
absolutely. Um, so let's go into Sega before we go into the Bratz game. Interesting. Let's
That's
go
game. Cool.
into Sega Dreamcast before we go
Right,
into Nintendo.
right. So I was even though the NES, the Nintendo system, was like my first baby, my first system. The Sega Genesis is really what like gripped me into games.
Mm-hmm.
So I became like a Sega boy. So I had like all the Sega consoles growing, well, not all of them, but I had the Sega Genesis. I never had the Super Nintendo at first. So like my neighbors would have the Super Nintendo, I would have the Sega Genesis. And then when the Sega Saturn came out, I got that. Well, when it was on discount, it was too expensive when it came out. And then my friends would have the PlayStation. We eventually got a Nintendo 64 also, and then Sega Dreamcast came out. I remember when it came out in the United States, it was September 9th, 1999, 9999. That
That
was their big
is
marketing thing,
that is so correct. There it is.
right? I got it on launch day from the KB toy store in the shopping mall. I remember
Yes.
I remember saving up for that because it was the very first console I purchased all by myself. I saved up the money for it. I had some birthday money that I had saved up earlier that year, and I also did a bunch of chores. And then Pokemon cards came out that summer, and I blew all my savings. So I had to save up for the Dreamcast twice, and I had to trade in a bunch of my old games to Funko Land, which I guess was later acquired by GameStop or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this Funko Land still owes me $35. They ripped a 13-year-old kid out of $35 because they lost my receipt from when I traded in a bunch of my stuff. And I continue to hold that grudge more than 20 years later.
I would too.
But yeah, the Sega Dreamcast is one of my favorite consoles of all time. It was ahead of its time, which is
Mm.
why it failed, right? No one
Right?
could no one could understand its majesty. It was the first console that had a built-in modem. And granted, it was a dial-up modem, but I mean, everyone had dial-up at the time.
Right.
But if I wanted to play games online on that thing, they even had like a free internet service for a while called SegaNet. So I had that. I had my own little. You could check your email on your Dreamcast. They had a web browser on it. I would visit it, my Sonic the Hedgehog fan pages on my TV with my Sega Dreamcast keyboard and mouse. You could download
Whoa.
images from the internet and save them to your memory card and use the graffiti in Jet Set Radio with the images that you download from the internet, right?
Wow.
So I would like make designs, upload it to a website, download it onto my Sega Dreamcast, and then spray a picture of myself inside the game, which for a console was unheard of, you
Yeah.
know. So that was super cool. And I was all about the online play at that time. The NFL 2K1 was the first, console online football game. And I'm not the biggest football fan in general, but NFL 2K was a very fun series for me.
Mhm.
And there's this one moment that I'll never forget with the 2K1 because this was before headsets, right? And I didn't have the keyboard. Even if you had the keyboard, there's no way that you can communicate with your teammate.
Right.
The way the online worked is that it just synced your system so both of you could pause at any time, which was also annoying if someone was trying to be a troll, they could just keep pausing the game over and over again.
Right.
Um, but it just linked your Dreamcast systems up over the dial-up, and I was getting totally skunked that game. I was getting completely destroyed. It was like 40-0, and it was my ball. It was the very last play. I was 60 yards away from the goal. Let's let's go for a field goal. Okay. So I took the field goal. I aimed it all the way to the ground and all the way to the right. Like I was just trying to lose in style,
Right.
right?
Right.
So then I kicked it with maximum force, and something in the janky 2001 physics made the ball bounce directly off the ground, but it looked like it bounced off of the biggest linebacker's butt straight up into the sky. And then it lands onto the heaviest guy on my team's hands. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, huh? And I just hold up on the controller and mash the A button to sprint. The largest guy on my team was huffing and puffing all the way down, and he made it to the 2 yard line before he got
Oh
tackled.
no.
And the reason why this memory sticks out to me is because I could tell that this other dude, without speech, without text, without typing, was also laughing as hard as I was because he went to the replay section of the menu before the game X'd out. And we both watched that replay back and forth like 6 times before our connection said no more.
Right.
So like that moment will always stick in my heart as a moment where gamers can connect with their hearts and not with any words or speech or
Yeah.
technology or anything. So I just thought that was pretty silly.
That's a really good memory. That's a core memory right there.
Pretty much. But yeah, I was like I wanted to get it because I was mostly a Sega fan because of Sonic the Hedgehog, but what
Mhm.
surprised me is like so many of the other great games that came out for Sega Dreamcast that just kept me occupied. Like if you liked fighting games like Street Fighter or
Mhm.
anything like that, Dreamcast was came out at the perfect time where the golden era version of each of those games was released all on the same console, right? So the best Marvel versus Capcom, the best Street Fighters, the best Soul Calibur. Well, I mean, Soul Calibur is the only one out, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like the best version iteration of like almost every game was released on that system. It was a fighting game like paradise.
Mhm.
And there's also a bunch of other games on there too, plus some of the weird online games that no one will ever see or hear ever again, like
Right.
Ooga Booga. Like no one knows that game, but I got good at that game, and I was being a witch doctor, destroying everyone across the internet for a good 2 weeks before everyone stopped playing that game. But
Yeah.
like, so then I became like a Dreamcast collector of stuff because the Dreamcast failed. Um, a lot of people want to say it was Sony that killed it because of the PS2 and the DVD and all that other stuff. I say, yeah, that didn't that didn't help it. But also, the Dreamcast is the easiest system to pirate for. You do not need to have a mod chip or anything. People found a way you could just burn the games onto a regular CDR, right? And I still bought all my games at that time, but I had buddies that had binders full of just burnt copies. Like
Wow.
so at the time, Sega was just like, "Hey, how do we get people to buy more Dreamcast? Maybe we should release better games. Yeah, let's release a bunch of good games. Wait, no one's buying the games. Uh-oh." They figured it out way too late, and in basically like early 2002, they finally released a model of the Dreamcast that couldn't play the CDRs like that. But the damage was too late.
Yeah.
so so piracy had a huge hand killing the Dreamcast,
Oh
unfortunately.
no.
Um, but because of that, all the prices for all the games and stuff just dropped down. It's a dead system. So
Right.
at that time, that's when I jumped in because I only had a handful of games for the thing, being a teenager, not a bunch of money. And by the time I was older and in college and stuff, like everything was dirt cheap. You can get almost any game for the system for like $2, unless it was like a super rare one. And I was just buying up all the games and all the accessories. So now I have this massive Dreamcast collection with all the like the extra peripherals and light guns and all that other stuff. So I'm a big Sega Dreamcast nerd. I love that thing.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was looking at this. It says we had a tremendous 18 months. Dreamcast was on fire. Really thought we could do it, but then we had a target from Japan that said we had to make X hundreds of millions of dollars by the holiday season and shift X millions of units of hardware. Otherwise, we just couldn't sustain the business. Somehow I got to make that call, not the Japanese. I had to fire a lot of people. It was not a pleasant day. So on January 31st, 2001, we said Sega is leaving hardware. We were selling 50,000 units a day, then 660,000, then 100,000, but it was just not enough to make the critical mass to take the launch of the PS2. It was big stakes game. Sega had the option of pouring in more money and going bankrupt, and they decided they wanted to live to fight another day.
Yeah, in retrospect, it was a good choice considering the way things went because you ended up getting a lot of great Sega games after the fact,
Right.
right? You wouldn't have Super Monkey Ball, for example, if it weren't for the Dreamcast failing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, they probably could have released Super Monkey Ball for the Dreamcast, but that's another story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that's part of the era where they started making software for everybody else. But yeah, I really dig the system and everything that it had to offer, and it was sad because later on that year, it was the anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog, and they released Sonic Adventure 2 in
Mm-hmm.
2001, which is like one of the best games for the console. Um, dude, I would have definitely bought a Dreamcast Pro. Uh, I would have done it. I would hook, line, and sinker. I would have got it. Though I will say that as much as I love collecting Sega Dreamcast stuff, there are still a few accessories that were inaccessible to me because they were $1 million back then and they're $1 million now.
Mm.
And one of them was the broadband adapter. There's only 3 games that let you use broadband on the console. Uh, and believe it or not, one of them is still online. Quake 3 Arena for the Sega Dreamcast is still online.
Wait. Quake 3.
Mm-hmm.
Arena?
Yes, Quake 3 Arena for Sega Dreamcast is still online without having to mod the system.
Wow.
Fantasy Star Online and I think there's a few other games could support the broadband adapter. And oh man, Fantasy Star Online, hundreds of hours on that game online. Another anecdote. One of my buddies also had a Dreamcast, and we both loved Fantasy Star. So what we did is we had a sleepover where I brought my Dreamcast over to his house, and we used up both of his phone lines in his house to play Fantasy Star Online together because there wasn't like a split screen.
Right.
Um, and it's surprising how well those games back in the dial-up days uh, covered up lag. Like you have no idea how much lag there was with the dial up, but it covered up very well. On each other's screen, you couldn't tell who was lagging, but if you have both of them next to each other, I'd be running in front of him and he was running in front of me. We were following each other to where I don't know, but we had no idea.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Fantasy Star Online. Here it is, 2000.
hmm
Made for the
But yeah, you could
Dreamcast.
pick your own character. You could design them. One of my earliest games, remembering where you were able to customize your character like that. It's picking their hair, the color of their hair.
Right.
You could pick the exact hue. I know other games did it, but this was my first one that did that.
Yeah. This came out in December 21st, 2000.
Right. It is not aged well graphically,
No.
but it was just a simple action RPG. You just hit A, and things died. And you could either have like a sword or a gun, or you can use magic spells. And you could play with three other people online, and you went through dungeons together trying to get rare drops so you can, power up your character. Uh, and they did release episode 1 and 2. Oh, yeah, that's the screenshot. Oh my gosh. So they had an official Dreamcast keyboard to play the game. Uh, you didn't need it to play the game, but you needed to chat with your buddies,
Right.
right? And so I have an official Dreamcast mouse, an official Dreamcast keyboard, and you could also use that keyboard for typing of the dead, which is hilarious. But the GameCube, after Sega went down hardware wise, they started moving a lot of their software to other consoles. GameCube got a bunch of it, Xbox got a bunch of it, Sony got the least of it, but they got some eventually.
Right.
Um, and if you're a Sega fan like I am, you have the biggest grudge against Sony for no reason, because
Yeah.
Sony helped stab the Sega Saturn in the back, and that was the beginning and the end for Sega,
Yeah.
right? Space Channel 5, you're right, actually. Space Channel 5, brought up by Aston, is basically a Simon Says rhythm game
Okay.
for the Dreamcast, and you just play along to the rhythm. So like the news reporter character would be like, up, up, down, down, up, left, shoot, right? And you have to repeat it to the right rhythm.
Okay.
So and it just gets harder and harder as you play. What a fantastic game. I
There
I
was
love it so much. Michael Jackson had a cameo in it. Uh it was
there was a
it
version of this that was Spice Girls. I don't know if you
really.
played the Spice Girls on the PlayStation, but there was a thing where you would dance and you would press the up down or whatever, and the Spice Girls would do the dance based on. And I had terrible problems with it because I have no rhythm, and so, but yeah, that sounds very familiar, and the graphics look pretty much the same because it was the original PlayStation.
Right. Yeah, that was, but I would kind of want to play that Spice Girls
Let
song.
me see. Hold on, Spice
That play, yeah, I want to see the Spice
Girls,
Girls game.
game.
I haven't played it, but I think I would totally kill it.
Their Spice World Tour. No, 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 no. Spice. What was it called? Spice Girls
Whoa.
video game. We'll just do that and see what happens. Spice World video game. So this is what they looked like,
Aw, that's so cute.
right? They're really cute characters and everything like that. And they yeah, there's there's wannabe doing okay. So there's like 4 different mini games you could play. And where do they have a picture? They don't have a picture. It's basically like the songs that you have to 15 mixes, dance routines, and TV studio recordings that could be saved on a single memory card. So you could save the dances that you create.
Oh,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
okay. So you can kind of choreograph something and it remembers it. That's
Yep,
kind of cool.
yep, yep, yep.
I'm kind of jealous.
So yeah, I played the shit out of that. That and DDR, man. That was my first system, was a PlayStation.
Oh man. Okay. So DDR, there was one version of that released for the Sega Dreamcast. So
Okay.
naturally I had to get it. Uh and at this point I was in the dorms at my college, and my roommate left every weekend. Like he stayed there Monday through Friday, but he left during the weekend. And so I had the place to myself. So I would secretly take out my dance pad. I'd hook it up to my Dreamcast, and I'd just start stomping on some arrows like they owed me money. Uh Captain Jack, all that stuff.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah,
god. Or End of the
the old
Century. Do
DDRs.
you
Yeah,
have
the
that one?
butterfly song
Yeah.
too.
Now that's weird that this is a dedicated gamepad. So if you didn't have the feet pads, that you could use this.
Right, but it's just not the same.
It's
You
not the
gotta.
same, although I'd probably be better at it.
True, true.
Yeah, this is the dance pad. This is it.
Yes. So the thing is, the official Dreamcast pad was very hard to find, so I had to use a PlayStation to Dreamcast adapter to play my version. So I would play every weekend for whatever reason, Saturday night from
Yeah.
like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., just late night.
Wow.
I'd just be stomping arrows, be covered in sweat, just drinking blue Powerades until one day I heard a knock at the door, and I panicked. So I turned the TV off. I threw the dance pad under the bed. I ran up to the door, covered in sweat. Right. I opened the door, and there was an extremely tired looking girl looking at me, just like, "What are you doing in here?" I'm like, "Uh, uh, nothing." And she's like, Whatever it is, just stop." Oh, okay. All right. And that was the last time I played DDR.
Wait, where were you when this
I
girl
was in the
appeared?
dorms. I
Oh,
was in
I thought you were in a house, and I was like, so your sister? Like, why is there a random girl coming to your door?
right. No, I was in my college dorms,
Okay.
and the way our dorms were set up is there was a guy floor, then a girl floor, guy floor,
Right.
girl floor. And I completely forgotten. I knew my roommate was gone, but I completely forgotten. And I was stomping on the floor for 2 hours every night, every weekend, for months. And I guess this person had enough of me stomping where they came up, and I that was a realization that I had. Just like,
You're right.
I'm a nuisance. And
Oh no.
I was so ashamed. So DDR became my secret shame even more. So I would only play it like if I went to an arcade machine or something, but I stopped playing the home version after that. Like
Yeah.
even after I got out of the dorms, the shame followed me. I was like, I can't do it anymore.
The biggest problem for me is that I had carpet. So
Oh,
it was,
carpet was a disaster. Yeah.
yeah, but it was, I mean, it was very thin carpet. It wasn't exactly shaggy, but it doesn't matter because it was carpet. And so it would only read like sometimes, but we're stamping on it. And
I would try everything. Like if I had to play it on carpet, I would get like a bunch of cardboard and put it underneath to
yeah,
try to
that's
make
what
it
this
more.
is
But
showing.
it just wasn't the same. It's best on a hard floor,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wait, even the picture had cardboard. That's so funny.
Yeah, yeah, you nailed it. That's correct. Um, use in schools. Hold on, let me rewind here. And that's DDR would be a part of a fitness program phased into West Virginia's schools, starting with 103 middle schools. The program is conceived by a researcher at West Virginia University. Allowed students to use DDR as fulfill part of its physical education requirement. University of Kansas had Dance Dance Revolution open to students to take as a 1 credit hour course. What?
Where was I? I would have done it.
Oh my god.
Your final exam is like the Captain Jack Ultimate Remix on maximum
Yes.
maximum feet.
Oh my god. Wow, that's crazy. I would totally, at the time, like I was getting fit from it, but like I can't sweat, so it didn't really work out for me, but like I was getting at least exercise while playing a
Right.
video game. So,
Oh my
um
gosh. I would have loved that because
that's
for whatever
crazy.
reason the college at that time required a physical credit as well. And so I signed up for this calisthenics class where like I had to just wear a heart rate monitor and stuff because they wanted to use it for a study. So they just put me on the treadmill like 3 days a week. And I just have to run on it, and that's about it. And I was just like, I could have done that to DDR. This is we could have done. They just wanted to get my heart rate up.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this could be even an option. I could have presented, yo guys, would you just let me play DDR
Hear me
when the
out.
sun is
Hear me
out?
out. Hear
It
me
doesn't have
out.
to be my secret shame anymore.
They just made us walk around the track every time we had the class. We just had to walk or run around the track and just beat our thing every time. So I just started walk slow, and then by the end of the end of the course is done, I was walking faster than my slow. Like I beat my own,
You
because I
you beat your
knew
own,
to, yeah,
yeah.
because I knew to
You
go
got the you
in.
got the progress, so that's good.
Yeah,
But still,
yeah. Because Lord knows I can't run, so it was gonna be a walk, and it was at night. It was a night course, so it was actually sometimes it was pretty cool if it was hot outside.
ooh,
But I was also like in a mountain by New York, so like it was
oh
also cold.
yeah, it could get very cold.
Okay, so enough about me. Let's talk about Nintendo.
Oh boy. So yeah, Nintendo, like it was my first console, but then when Sega went down, then I went all in on Nintendo,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I got the GameCube and pretty much every Nintendo console after that, the Nintendo DS, but pretty much every console starting from GameCube onward, I had, and I played and enjoyed and became a big nerd about it. Part of the reason for that, naturally, of course, is I just followed Sonic the Hedgehog with wherever console that he was coming out to.
Right.
Um, but after I started playing more and more Nintendo games, and I guess also it probably came with some age too, you start to realize that a lot of the Sonic Hedgehog games aren't very good,
Mm-hmm.
which is sad to realize. My epiphany moment was I was playing this game called Sonic Heroes for Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. It was the first Sonic game to be multi-platform, like first Sonic game released on a non-Sega system,
Right.
right? So this was a big deal, and I was playing that game, and I realized, like, I 100% that game, but whenever I pop it in there and play some more of it, I realized that I only enjoyed the first 4 levels, and the rest of the game was a massive chore, especially the fifth level, the worst level in the game. Oh my gosh, nightmares. So, but it just got more janky, more awful, more bad there. And then all the 3D Sonic games after that just got worse and worse and worse.
Mm.
They started getting a little better in recent days, but that's when I had to sit there and realize to myself, hey, I don't think Sonic games are that good. The character is awesome. I still love the character. I still love the classic games for the older systems, but oh man,
Yeah.
that was a tough thing for me to accept in my heart that Sonic isn't what it used to be.
Mm. Did you like the
uh,
Sonic movies?
I love the movies. The movies were good. But here's the thing. I put my expectations really low
Mm-hmm.
for the first movie. Uh And I guess because my expectations were low, I walked out going, it was fun. It was a fun little popcorn movie. Um, it's weird how they needed to have human people be like the stage for it to like why are so many of these movies obsessed with trying to make a video game world fit into a regular world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what? Why do all the video game movies or whatever try to make the real world meet the fantasy world when they could have just make a movie in the fantasy
Fantasy
world just
world,
fine,
right?
right?
Because
Like
the when
super.
you add humans to it, that's where adults can enjoy it. Otherwise, they think it's a cartoon.
Do you think that's the reasoning for it?
That's the only reason I think is
That makes
because
sense, I
you
guess.
add
But like
adults and then
even with the Super Mario movie, right? Like they had to go from real Brooklyn to the Mushroom Kingdom. You know, they had to transform into another world. You know,
yeah. Hey, daughter of Q, welcome on in. Daughter of Q is in Australia.
ooh,
Yeah.
all right. So that's what, early morning right now, or is it more like lunchtime?
Yeah,
I'm
I think it's yeah, is it early morning or lunch for you, daughter of Q?
I always get mixed up with that time zone.
Almost 11
Okay,
a.m. Okay.
all right.
So it's still morning, but you can have an early lunch.
Yes.
Okay, so the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, yeah, I think it's you add adults, but then the same thing with like Super Mario movie. Um I think that they had to start again with adults, but then they didn't have to do too much adults. You know why? Because of nostalgia.
Yeah, that is true.
You know, you have
Now,
enough millennials going, "Ah, Mario!"
well, it's I just think it's funny too because the Mario movie that was became like a cult classic, but it was like a disaster, like the live action
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
That was also, hey, we started the real world and we go to another world. It was still trying to mix reality with fantasy.
Yeah.
So like when just the fantasy world would have been fine on its own. So that was like I kind of have a weird beef with how they just kind of have to have that anchor. I don't think you have to have that anchor, but I guess it's just more relatable. It seems like that's one of the things that takes me the most amount out of a movie is when I can hear the board meeting about it. When I can hear the focus group discussions. Like if
Right.
I'm watching a movie and I can imagine a boardroom of people going, well, we think the audience will respond well to this. Like if I can picture that in my mind while I'm watching the movie, I'm out. This is no
Right.
longer a movie. This is something being marketed to me, and it is no
Yeah.
longer a story. And
Yeah.
whenever I get that feeling, I'm out, right? I can suspend my disbelief for so long, so much, especially since of all the bad movies I've seen in my life. So my bar, I'm very generous. But as soon as I get that commercialism vibe from it, and I can picture that boardroom, oh yes, but of course, I'm out.
Pepsi.
So
When they just
yeah,
throw in like marketing things like, oh, I just need to have my Pepsi and blah blah blah, and you're just like,
well, even that, I will give them flack for the marketing stuff.
really? Oh, I can't. If I see
I
somebody do with a name brand, I'm like, I hate you.
For some of the name brands, because they got to make money, of course. And I mean, we use name brands in our real life. Like, are they going to make a fake Pep? Sometimes the fake Pepsi takes me out of it more than the real Pepsi,
Oh, if they're
because
like
they go
calling
through
it
the effort of
Popsy,
like making a Popsy or something like that.
that's fair.
What I'm talking where it takes me out is in terms of like plot and stuff. So, or the writing or anything else like that. Like Transformers 2, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. There's a scene in the movie where this government the government is taking over the investigation of the bad guy robots or something, right? and and the music is playing, and it's somber, and all this other stuff, and all the characters are looking at their shoe going, oh shucks. And the mean government guy is like, I'm taking over uh this investigation of the bad guy robots. This is our jurisdiction. All of y'all need to go home. You're just vigilantes now, right?
Yeah.
And the music drives it home, the dialogue drives it home, the camera angle zoomed in way too much to their faces, and them all doing like, oh shucks, right? Like, you get the idea that everyone is sad and they don't like this guy who's taking control,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then the movie pauses for, it feels like a million hours, but it's just a few moments, and it zooms in on this one guy, and it's just like, I don't like that guy. I was just like, and I'm like, this is what that movies, like the producers and stuff, think of their audience. They think we could not get that
Without
without that line
saying
being
it.
in there. And then after he says that, I don't like that guy, they wait another like 5 seconds, and he's still looking at the ground, and he's like, he's a jerk, right? I'll just like, and I had to
I
watch
get
that
what you
movie as a
mean.
challenge, so I couldn't leave. So like, I had to sit there and watch the rest of that movie, and it got worse.
Yeah.
But like,
No, I get
that's
what you
just
mean now when they over
yeah.
explain something that could have been gotten just by the scene.
Right. Well, when it feels manufactured, like over manufactured, or whatever. And the thing is, when I say it like this, I can sound like hyper snobby, like, oh, I only want the most authentic, natural movie experiences. I want everything to just flow together. No, I'm okay. I'm okay with a popcorn movie that doesn't make any sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like people with a chainsaw attached to their hand or what. I'm fine with that if they set the rules to that. But if that movie crosses the line for me, though, that's where it loses me. And there's
Mm-hmm.
only a handful of movies that I could say that really do that terribly, like that Transformers movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so if I could feel like I am the consumer, if the movie makes me feel like I'm a consumer and I'm consuming the movie, the product, then I'm out of the movie experience.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of some bad movies recently where I was just totally okay with it, right? Like, I I think part of this is because I was in a bad movie club,
Okay.
uh, that was argued by the founders of the group were trying to argue which was the worst movie, the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles or the Michael Bay Transformers.
Okay.
And so what they did is we set up a huge list of movies that we all had to watch, and we had to make a top 10 of like the worst movies that we've ever had to see. And the challenge was, while we watched these movies together, no one was allowed to riff. You were not allowed to make any jokes. You had to watch it in silence, right?
Wow.
Which is pretty tough because, man, some of those movies. I think one movie we had to make an exception because we were laughing.
Oh.
Uh, but but like, watching these movies lowered my criticism for so many other movies because it gets so much worse, y'all.
Yeah.
So I'm way more forgiving for other movies. And when people say, wait, you like this movie? I'm like, yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
It's like, why? It's terrible. I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't that bad.
Right. Could have been worse.
Could have been
Could have
worse.
been
Yeah.
Transformers too.
Transformers 2.
That's where we hold the
Ugh.
bar now. Um
Transformers 2 is very bad.
okay, this, and then let's keep going on the Nintendo rant. You wrote Wario.
Right. Yes. So Wario is an interesting character because he was basically supposed to be like the anti Mario,
Right.
right? And he ended up getting his own spin-off of games that are, I would argue, some of them way better than the Mario games,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty silly. um so he was initially invented as a villain specifically for a Game Boy Mario game, so not a huge wide audience there. It was called Mario Land 2, the six golden coins, and the plot was Wario steals Mario's castle, therefore Mario must get it back. Which is great because we learned that Mario has his own castle.
Noted.
but but after you beat up Wario, then Wario, you play as Wario and you treasure hunt, you go around, steal stuff. You're basically like an explorer, but you're really strong. And he's just like a buff, angrier version of Mario.
Mm-hmm.
And um and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the phrase Metroidvania before,
No.
but basically it's a fusion of Castlevania and Metroid, and those games have huge maps that are filled with exploration, right? Where you
Right.
will revisit areas once you get new power ups. So there's newer versions of this, like Hollow Knight is a big example of this, where you
Right.
power up your character and you can explore new areas and all this other stuff. Wario Land helped build on this, especially with Mario Land 3. I mean Wario Land 3, sorry. And like I just started geeking out about this series and really loving the Wario games. And then on top of that, he started getting invited to all the Mario sports, so like Mario Kart, Mario Tennis,
Tennis. Yeah.
Mario Party, but all those other things. And he was just such a funny character to me. He basically almost, became a part of me, even though I'm not that greedy in real life. But just like the chaos of competitive games and just laughing like a maniac. um and whenever a new Wario game comes out, I try my best to get it. Uh,
So what about the new ones, the party games?
the micro mini games, the WarioWare, that's a spin-off even,
Mm-hmm.
so the idea is, imagine a Mario Party where you just play a mini game, but each of the mini games are meant to last 5 seconds, and then you have to play a bunch of them in a row, and it gets faster and faster and faster,
Yeah.
right? So the WarioWare games are also some of my favorites. I played the original on the Game Boy Advance when it came out,
Mm-hmm.
and all the spin-offs that they had after that, like the ones that they keep coming up with fancy new gimmicks which each one. So the sequel used the tilt controls. They made a Game Boy cart that had a gyroscope inside of it, so you
Mm.
have to twist your Game Boy to play each of the mini games.
Wow. Okay, that's intuitive.
And then the DS had the touch screen. So that was like the next innovation. And then they kept adding more and more different gimmicks to each one. So WarioWare Smooth Moves on the Wii,
Yeah.
they used the Wii remote. So all the games had to use the Wii remote, sometimes the nunchuck, but it was a blast. Most recent one that came out, um, I uses the Switch motion controls
Mm-hmm.
to move it. That is a blast. I enjoy that one a lot too. There's one game that tricks you into doing some serious exercises. so so we're all trying to squat to make our characters virtual butts. Put ink onto some paper at the right time.
That's
And
great.
at first it looks silly, but when you start playing it a lot, it's like, hey, this game is tricking me into doing squats. This is not fair. Uh,
That's
but
great.
I love all those games. I'm a big motion control nerd. So like the Wii, for example, because this whole thing brought up with Nintendo topic,
Mm-hmm.
like when everyone's just like, the Wii, the waggle, the physics, it's not true controls. No, I found a way to make those goofy remote controls work for me.
Yeah.
Like I got really, serious about making sure I move my wrist the right way so control's the best one. So there's so many, like the Zelda that came out for the Wii, the Skyward Sword, everyone
Yeah.
complained about the controls. I was one of the few that didn't have problems with controls because I had an immense amount of patience built up for wacky motion controls.
Right.
So, like I sat there and I loved the motion controls in that game. The Metroid with the pointing controls, the Pikmin with the pointing controls. Every single time they threw motion controls at me for whether it's the Switch or the Wii or anything else, I tried to use the motion controls as much as possible.
Now, have you ever played Super Paper Mario?
I love that game.
That game is my all-time favorite game in the whole wide world.
It's so funny because a lot of Mario RPG nerds dump on that game because they got rid of the RPG battles, right? All the other Paper Marios, you take turns to hit each other like a Final Fantasy type game. And I
Mm-hmm.
love those ones too, but I played all the way through Super Paper Mario where you shake the controller when you land on the guy to get the extra damage,
Yep.
uh, moving the controller sideways so you could zoom into the 3D versus the 2D planes and the
Yeah.
puzzles there. I love Super Paper Mario.
They did amazing at that game, and honestly, that was the first like Paper Mario I ever played. So that way, when
The
I got Paper Mario, the Origami King, I was like, this is trash.
Whoa.
Yes, because not because the game is trash, because I can't play. I didn't like the whole spin around the thing, and then you have to kill them that way, and
Right. I haven't actually played that one, but I did see the footage of that battle system where you have to try to line everything up and whatever. It seems kind of neat if you are into, making your battles into puzzles. But I could see that if you're used to having like the real-time combat where you just jump on their head,
yeah,
and other things like that, how that might be difficult. But the one thing though that I did hear about the Origami King that's true for most of the Paper Marios is the dialogue is fantastic,
yeah, yeah.
right?
The dialogue is always great.
Especially in Super Paper Mario. Do you remember Mr. L?
Yes, yes. And then I loved the beautiful story of Tippy. Like,
Tippy.
yeah, the beautiful story that, what she is and
Right.
all that is, and yeah. Anyway, I could talk about that for hours. That is literally like when people come on here and they talk Nintendo, I'm like, by the way, this is my favorite game. And they're like, oh, I never played it. And I'm like, okay, I guess we'll stop
Oh no,
there.
I played it. I approve. It's fantastic.
Okay. It's like, I guess we'll stop there. We'll move on to the next topic. Um, so then going with Nintendo and going with Wario and all that stuff, let's talk about what took the world by storm, which is Pokemon.
Pokemon.
So what? I mean, Pokemon came out what 1996. So did you jump on board immediately? Were you just with the cards? Were you games immediately? Like, what was your Pokemon experience?
Okay, it's okay. All right. I'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
All right. So, basically it all started when I saw someone else have it and I wanted it naturally. Mommy, mom, give it. I might be able to, So, I was able to get one of those atomic purple, like see-through Game Boy Colors with Pokemon Blue in it. And I had no
Yes.
idea what I was getting myself into,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I wasn't aware of the TV show very much. Everyone was talking about the TV show, and I hadn't seen it yet. I was just like, I don't know what's going on. All I know is people are playing this game, and my friend had it, and he said it was cool, so I got to try it. I tried it, and I was just like, yo, this is good, right?
Yeah.
And I played a lot of the game and I enjoyed it. And then the TV show was great at the time. I enjoyed watching the TV show, and the Pokemon cards came out shortly after that. Uh, and I started buying up a bunch of the cards. My younger brother was more into it, the cards, than I was,
Mm-hmm.
so his collection was much more impressive. I think he had the holographic Charizard at the time,
Wow.
which was the best one at that time that you could get.
Yep.
I remember seeing it in the card shops for $125, which that was like in 1999 money.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but then there was like a wave of anti-Pokemonness, at least when it came to the show and all the other stuff. And there, at least in my area, it suddenly became uncool to like Pokemon. So I kind of shied away from it, and I feel bad that I did. I shouldn't have, but I guess the pressures at the time, you don't want to get picked on for
Right.
liking a baby kid show or whatever. And the TV show didn't help too, because the plots were getting cheesier,
Yeah.
and and at that point, I was starting to get into high school at that time. So you definitely couldn't be cool if you liked Pokemon,
Nope.
right?
Yep.
No way, you can't do it. So I kind of shied away from the series because I always enjoyed it, but I just shied away from it for a while. So I skipped the sequel that came out, Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Mm-hmm.
I skipped the next sequel that came out, the Ruby and Sapphire.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, in 2004-ish, 2005-ish,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's when they came out with the fourth generation, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was already in college. So I was just like, okay, I'll give it a try. The Nintendo DS was still kind of new.
Mm-hmm.
I had my DS and I was loving it a lot. I was playing the Metroid Prime Hunters. I was playing the Mario 64 remake on it with the touch. I'm not sure if you ever tried to play the Mario 64 on the DS, um, but that thing
Mario
was.
64 on the DS.
They
Or
made they
no.
ported that game. They added like extra characters so you could play as Wario.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so of course I had to check it out.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing is, that system didn't have an analog thumbstick like the Nintendo 64. So you had to use the touch screen for analog controls, or you tried to use the little plus pad. It was a nightmare. Anyway, I was gaming out to that stuff, and I decided to try Pokemon Pearl, and I fell back in love with Pokemon. It was fantastic, and I got every single generation since.
Okay. Did you go
Um,
back for gold and silver?
I eventually did for stream. Everyone's just like, "What do you mean you didn't play Generation 2? That's the best one." I'm
Yeah.
like,
Gold
"Ed,
is
it's probably not that good." And I tried. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, all right. This game was spitting. This game was good."
yeah, gold was to me one of the most superior. My favorite one is Pokemon X.
Oh, X? Really? Oh, you're one of the Gen Sixers, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that game, the story, the fact that after you go ahead and beat the Elite Four, you can go ahead and play a detective inside the city. And so there's a whole bunch of after game content that you can do, or you can do Pokemon battles with these as you're doing detective work inside the city. And I just thought it was so pretty, and I loved it on the 3DS. And yeah.
I enjoyed X and Y. I still haven't played the Sapphire at all. I still haven't played Gen 3, and everyone tells me that one is also really good.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to play the so here's the thing. I played X and Y. Well, I played X is the one that I got.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it a lot too. And it introduced some of my favorite new Pokemon, right? Like Halucha, the Luchador Hawk. I love him. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Uh, but the series like I enjoyed so much of the new stuff that they keep adding into the newer games. And when they came out with Alpha Sapphire or an Omega Ruby or whatever, which were the remakes of Gen 3,
Mm-hmm.
I tried it out for a little bit and I just got this like, no, I can't do the old stuff anymore. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't get through the intro. It was just too much. And everyone's just like, how did you stop that early? It's one of the best ones. Yeah. One of the remakes of the best ones. I'm like, no, no, no.
No.
I need that breath of fresh air with the with what X and Y brought. And then when the Sun and Moon came out after that, like I soaked that up. I loved it.
That was
Right?
different. That was very different. That was
Right.
the
Each one is different. Each one has their own little new gimmick.
that
Like
was
they
the
dropped all
whole
the mega Pokemon.
Aloha one, right?
Yes, the
Sun and Moon.
Alola one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Alola, I should say that correctly. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, no, that one I played through as well, and I liked it. But I was like, this is weird. Like the type of Pokemon, the fact that the executor, right?
I love the Alolan region ones. Oh, like he turns into the giant palm tree.
Yeah, like that's what I said. It's
Yeah.
not bad different. It was just different. Like you were taking
Right.
the same Pokemon and you were making them different. And that
I just
blew
thought
my
it was
friggin'
cute.
mind.
I know that opened because they kept doing the regional variants from each game onwards too. Like they
Right.
didn't give up that concept. They dumped other concepts out, but they kept that one. So like I know that region they made the Alolan Ninetales, which was now ice and fairy instead of
Yeah.
fire, and everybody loves the ice fox, right? But to me, it's also extremely interesting to think about in terms of like biology and stuff because you couldn't have the Firefox and the Ice Fox live together because the Firefox would be super effective against the Ice Fox.
Right.
So because the Firefox, wasn't there ever on that island, it didn't become the dominant species. So it became
Right.
that different region of it. So whenever they come up with a variant for that, I just think, oh, that's really neat. Like this is the reason why this one exists because of that, and I come up with some sort of like headcanon reason, like biologically like with evolution and survival of the fittest and all the other stuff for why these different competing versions don't exist anymore.
Right.
And that even carries on a lot towards the what do you call it, the newest version, Scarlet Violet,
Mm-hmm.
because the gimmick for that game is there's a lot of Pokemon from different time periods that are visiting you.
Right.
So, so to me, a lot of the past version of the Pokemon don't exist anymore for a good reason, because they were made extinct, I guess, because of their typing, and replaced with one with a more advantageous typing. Or even with like a Pokemon Legends Arceus, I love that game.
Mm.
They invented a new version of Zoroark, which was a ghost normal type. But the normal Zoroark is dark type, and ghost normal only has one weakness, and it's dark. So the
Right.
one we find in modern times, you can only see the dark one running around because it was beat out by the normal ghost one. I mean,
Right.
the normal ghost one was beat out by it. So like this is where my mind goes when I'm sitting here like, wow.
And thank you for the lyric, daughter of cute. Yeah, I am a part of the unpopular opinion that I did not like Arceus.
Oh. So I think Arceus was a nice take. I'm glad that it's technically a spinoff. I think it does really cool things lore wise for seeing like early versions of the Pokemon or whatever. I liked being able to sneak up and throw the ball. That was actually addicting. One thing I didn't like was the battle system in that one. That one was
Mm.
no
Yeah.
good. There's a reason why they didn't include multiplayer battles. They do. They knew they knew they goofed that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I actually liked the story for that one. But after I played through it, I was just like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but I
I
like
just
the idea.
the idea was great. I love like you said, the concept of sneaking up and going ahead and doing that. But at the same token, I love Pokemon. I love the formula of Pokemon. You start in the beginning, you end at the end, and then there's new open world where you can go ahead and continue end game with
Right.
additional stuff. But I like the formula of you start with nothing. It's like a survivor game. You
Right.
start with nothing, you gain your stuff, you keep all of your water and all the things that are like a good survivor game that you would play on PC. And that's Pokemon.
Okay. I like no, I get what you mean. I get the typical progression where you feel like you've progressed,
Right.
you know,
Leveling
and
up
you have
and all
so
that
many more
stuff.
resources. Your
Mhm.
Pokemon box is filled with an army of stuff that you've caught, that you've trained with the right amount of moves and stuff. You're
Right.
prepared for any scenario now.
Mhm.
Whereas the Arceus, it was more of just catching the same dudes over and over again to grind
To
up a
grind
list.
them up.
I didn't bother with the Pokédex stuff in that game because it's like, hey, you need to catch 30 of these guys in a row. I'm like, yeah, no thanks. I
Yeah.
would just want to progress the story. Let's move this along,
Yeah.
right? So I get what you mean there, but you obviously have heard of the new Legends game that they announced that's supposed to take place in Lumio City, right?
No.
They announced Pokemon Legends ZA, which is
Okay.
basically inspired by the sixth generation, your favorite generation.
X and Y?
Uh-huh.
Ooh.
That's right.
Z and A. I always love it when they come up with like the opposites, like what the hell it's going to be. But that's pretty cool.
So we don't know anything about this game other than it takes place in the main city that has like the not Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, right? The
So
fact
that's
that this
all we
A
know.
even looks like a friggin' Eiffel Tower over here, but that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. France was first introduced into the X and Y according to its trailer. It's set during an urban redevelopment. In February 2024, it was announced as Pokemon Presents released the window of 2025. At the end of the trailer, the Mega Evolution mechanic, which was first introduced in X and Y, was also teased to return. Wow.
So that could be very interesting. We could see the our friendly X and Y Pokemon come back.
Mm-hmm.
Our little Flabébés. Uh,
Yeah.
this is the game where Sylveon was first came out. Um, there's all sorts of fun little friends in this one.
Yeah.
Aegislash was also one of my favorites from this generation.
Yeah.
Which I yeah, this so I'm excited for that. I'm less excited for the mega evolutions. The idea is kind of cool of because like temporarily you can have an ultra strong Charizard that looks different and
Right.
you know all this other stuff. That's so cool, right? But my main beef with that is there's only a handful of Pokemon that got that treatment. You know, everyone
Right.
everyone has their own favorite Pokemon. You know, there's more than 1,000 now. right? So are we going to make mega evolutions for everybody? Probably not. So like, will yours get it? Or so to
Right.
me, I felt like it made the selection of what kind of Pokemon you'll see on a team or whatever just kind of limited because everyone wants to have that mega on their team.
Now, what about Pokemon Go? I mean, they use Mega Evolutions over
Right.
and
Oh,
over
I
and
don't.
over again.
Yeah. I mean, they made that a little bit more sustainable because you earn those mega points and they make it so you can do that. But yeah, Pokemon Go, I couldn't handle the grind anymore. I had to stop. I had to do it. I was playing it every day for like uh
2016.
yeah, from 2016, played it like every day until maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
It was during a Halloween event. I was so sick and tired of my bag running out of room, so I couldn't even swipe the Pokestops. I was just like, enough, enough. I'm. It's like I will not click on this game no more. I have
Yeah.
a bunch of friends that still play it, so I still see all the announcements and stuff. I'm like, that's fine. But I had my fun with that game. It was a lot of fun swiping. It was a lot of fun tapping the screen,
Yeah.
battling the stuff, doing the gyms. Do you remember how the gyms used to be in that? When it first came out, the gyms in Pokemon Go,
Tell me.
uh, the way it worked was you could put any amount, like there was no limit to um there was no limit to the type of Pokemon you could put in there. And also the way that you did damage to the gym and all this other stuff. So what people started doing is they started training up like Blissies
Mm-hmm.
and giving and leveling them as much as possible and putting 6 of them in there. You could never defeat that gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they made it so you can only have one of each type in there, so you couldn't completely crush it. I mean, you could actually have a chance to defeat it. And the other thing that they used to happen is if a gym was defeated, it turned gray,
Yep.
which means any team could take it. Uh, so
They
I
don't have
sometimes
that
I would,
now.
yeah, the person who beat the gym is allowed to get dibs on it,
Right. But only for a
right?
certain amount of time. It's like a
Exactly,
minute or two.
which is usually good enough
Yeah.
for whoever sat there to beat that gym. But I remember when I could see crowds of people just trying to take over gym. I just waited for it to turn gray and I put my guy in there,
Yep. That's what
right?
I used to do.
Like I'm glad they fixed that, but
Right.
that was still pretty aggravating if you're the one that beat it and then suddenly it's like because okay, hold on, this is a very important question. What team are you?
Red. I didn't
Okay, all
choose to
right,
be red. I just was like, it's 2016 and I had to pick a color and I like the color red.
red,
That's really everybody's like,
red.
"Oh, red are the vicious ones. Oh, they're the ones that are killer people and they're going to go ahead and be cutthroat." And I was like, "I just like the color red, guys." When it came out, I had to pick a fucking color and I picked red.
You could have picked blue though. Then we
No.
could have been on the same team.
No, I'm not a blue person.
But here's the one thing that red and blue can unite over.
Not yellow.
Not yellow. All right. Get them crayon eating yellow team
glue
people
glue
out of here.
sniffing, glue sniffing, crayon eating.
Just chugging that jar of paste.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Get them out of here.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's so funny. What was I about to say? Oh, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Pokemon?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a hard time choosing a favorite baby.
Okay.
But if I have to narrow it to my top two,
Okay.
is going to be Trubbish slash Garbodor.
Right, which was in your picture.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
I love
Okay.
that. I love that my trash baby.
Okay.
I'm actually like heartbroken he didn't make it into Scarlet and Violet.
Mm.
Like he would definitely been on my team, that's for sure. And Rhyperior, which is my second baby. So Rhyperior is like the first gen you had Rhyhorn, Rhydon,
Okay.
and they gave him the new evolution in Diamond and Pearl, where he looks like he's wearing like an orange safety jacket or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love that Pokemon. I love Rock type and I love Poison type. Those are my two favorite types. And he's my big beefy rock guy. He had an ability that makes super effective attacks do less damage on him, so he's even tankier.
Yeah, I love the
And
tanks.
he had a custom move where, like, if you remember Hyper Beam,
Yeah.
where it would just did amazing damage, but then you had to take a turn to rest, and then they made a rock version of that just for Rhyperior called Rock Wrecker. And like the whole screen just filled up with the giant rock, and he would just crush whoever came up to him. But then he had to take a breather after. It didn't matter. It was worth it. It was
Right.
worth it to flex that Rock Wrecker. It's
Yeah.
a terrible move competitively, but when you're sitting there fighting against the gym leader and you put a rock the size of Pluto on top of their head, like
Yeah. That's
it's
funny.
good.
Yeah, mine is Togekiss.
Togekiss. Yes, that's another bonus evolution from Gen 4. Gen
Love
4
it.
added a lot of evolutions.
So cute. You
I
know
will
what?
say this though,
Go ahead.
is I love Togekiss. The fairy flying is such a cool typing. All sorts of cool moves. I love all the setups and the stats for Togekiss. Togetic
Mm-hmm.
and Togepi, straight to the dumpster.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I like Togekiss.
Straight to the dumpster. Especially after I tried out Gen 2 for the first time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because Gen 2, they were like one of the flagship new Pokemon for that generation. You get given the Togepi egg early on. It took forever to evolve that thing into Togetic.
Yep.
And you look at his stats. He's got amazing special attack, and he's tanky too. That's fantastic. But then when you look at his moves, back in those days, all normal
Back
type
in those
attacks.
days.
Back in those days, all normal attacks were physical based.
Yeah.
All flying attacks were physical based. All ghost type attacks were physical based, right?
Yeah.
And you had a special attacking Pokemon that didn't learn any special attacking moves.
Yeah.
He was useless. I put him in my PC. I was just like, I'm sorry, man. I know it took me like 30 hours to evolve you, but
Yeah.
you're
You're done.
straight to the dumpster. But then Togekiss came out in the gen where they made it so you can have special normal attacks, special flying attacks. They gave the fairy typing to it later in Gen 6.
Yeah.
Um, it became a force to be reckoned with. It was a very strong Pokemon. Togekiss, wonderful.
So, on that note, we're going to talk about cute things.
Yes.
Capybaras.
Capybaras.
They're so cute.
Oh my gosh. So I'm gonna be honest. This might be a little crime, a capybara crime,
Mm-hmm.
as it were. I don't think they're that cute.
Yeah.
I think they're cute, but they got like that beaver looking face. That
He looks like
I'm
he's
not
up
sure.
to something.
Oh, his eyes are cute, but that one is scheming
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm not sure if you've seen the nutria animal. They remind me too much of nutria, which is another kind of rodent, and we have them around where I live, and they have scary red teeth.
Okay, I see. I see. Oh, wow. Okay, that's creepy. Look at its
Yeah,
teeth.
I know.
Ah!
I'm sorry, but yeah, they got scary red teeth. Uh,
Let me get this
and
picture
these
away.
things were at my park, and they are just crawling out of the lake there, trying to eat all the bread that people are throwing at the ducks. So I'm just like, oh my gosh. So when I learned about a capybara, I'm just like, oh, is that a nutria? I'm like, no, no, no. This is way more cute than a nutria, to be fair.
Yeah, by the
But
way, a nutria sounds like a bar, like a
oh, I make that joke all the time.
yeah, it
I call,
sounds like a Nutrigrain bar. Like that's what it
yeah,
sounds like.
or like the remember the Nutrisystem
Yeah.
like diet thing? I would call them Nutria systems.
There you go.
So, but like capybaras, though, on the other hand, way cuter than the nutrias for sure.
Yeah, look at these
But
little
like,
guy.
I got the tiny little nutria vibe off of it. So just pure cuteness level, I'm at like an 8 instead of a 10 like everybody else,
Yeah,
right?
no, I mean, I don't think they're still what are they called? Rodents, right? They're
Yeah,
still rodents, and I don't like rodents. Like I think
and
flying
still cuter than koalas. I think koalas are frighteningly scary looking.
koalas don't give no fucks.
Well, I think like a giant snail died on their face and it became their nose. Uh, so and their beady little eyes. Anyway, the capybaras. So what attracted me to them is their attitude. They're
Oh
so
yeah,
chill.
yeah.
They're the ultimate Zen creature. I aspire to be like a capybara. Just everything just rolls off my back. All the videos I see of them, it doesn't matter if it's a predator animal or another type of they chill with everything.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. They I hope there's no music to this. Okay, good. Look at him go. Look at him
Yeah,
go.
look how chill he is.
Oh, goodness. Oh, big yawn.
The yawn, his teeth aren't scary red.
Oh,
Like
that's cute.
he's a cutie.
Yeah.
And like I was already like, yo, I love these attitudes. And then you see them in a hot spring with the oranges in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they have any of those photos on the
Hot,
Wikipedia,
hot springs
but
with orange in it.
yeah, capybara is just chill in the hot springs with the fruit floating in it, and I'm just like, that's me. I want it. That's me.
Mm,
Embodied my soul.
no, they don't have the hot spring stuff.
Ah, Wikipedia.
Ah.
I have to submit that.
So I'm gonna save one though. I'll save that one for last. Um, so a few things really. We're talking about cute things, so let's talk about Muppets.
Fuzzy to fuzzy. Let's go.
Let's do it. I'm trying to keep on like no hard lefts, but there's gonna be a hard left up here. Like
Uh
we're
oh.
gonna hit a hard left, and I'm really excited about it. So,
Uh oh. Okay, I'm kind of scared.
oh, don't be
All
scared.
right.
Pokemon.
Muppets. I love the Muppets, but what's interesting for me is my first exposure to the Muppets was the Muppet Babies cartoon show,
Yes.
right? Because before then I knew Kermit as an occasional guest on Sesame Street, but like the actual Muppets, I didn't really see most of them besides maybe Kermit on Sesame Street. And then the Muppet Babies show, which is a
Yes.
spin-off
The
based
best.
off of a single skit in one Muppets movie.
Yep.
By the way, like someone saw that one skit and thought that was amazing, and they turned a whole cartoon franchise off of it. So I watched a ton of these Muppet Babies cartoons when I was younger, and I digged it, and that's where I got the sheesh, and all that other stuff from. And
That's funny.
I dug it. And then when I got a little older, I found the treasure trove of all the actual Muppet stuff, and like in most cases, Muppets makes everything better. Treasure Island, yeah, it's all right.
Muppet
Treasure
Treasure
Island,
Island.
yeah.
Right.
Christmas Carol, fantastic. Muppet Christmas Carol, yeah, right. Like everything was just enhanced by the Muppets, and having the even like the Muppet shows, the variety
The
shows that
variety
used to be
shows.
with the
Yeah.
Statler and Waldorf making fun of them, and all that other stuff. Even did you see the Muppet Show that came on ABC like maybe 6 or something years ago?
Yeah, September 2015 to March 1st, 2016.
Oh man, oh even older than I thought. It's basically like, yeah, just right when you have like The Office, Parks and Recreation. I was just about to say that
Yeah.
they tried to make it mockumentary style of them making a show
Okay.
behind the scenes of a Muppets kind of thing. And Kermit was supposed to be like the producer, and
I
Miss Piggy
remember
was the
this.
star. And
Mm-hmm.
I even really liked that show, and I was kind of sad when it got canceled so quickly.
One season.
Yeah, I was just like, how it was. I thought it was great. I thought it was funny. I thought it was good, but I don't know. Maybe all those bad movies that I watched completely ruined my taste,
Yeah.
because I dug some of the plots. One of my favorite side plots they had for one of the episodes is Miss Piggy was trying to launch a new brand of water, um, and she kept running into roadblocks with the publicity and actually getting it released because it had too many calories to be considered water. And and um like they would come up to her like every now and then, have a running gag about like a new thing that was wrong with the water. And it's like, yeah, it seems to me that the FDA classified it as a sauce. And I was just like, that line stuck with me because it was just so funny that the water was so unhealthy for you was considered a
The
sauce.
sauce. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
And at the very end of the episode, they had so much water they didn't know what to do with it, so they used it as like a stunt for Gonzo to jump into or something. But whatever. Like,
Yeah.
but the rest of the show was so good, and I was shocked when they did it, because like it was coming off the momentum of that Muppets movie, um, the that had the "Am I a Man or a Muppet" song,
Yes.
uh, that gave me a little bit of
A
Avenue
Muppet
Q
or a
vibes. And
man.
yeah, "Am I a Muppet or a man?" It's I loved it. So that was a good movie. I didn't watch the sequel movies, but like the whole point is it was coming off of that momentum, and I was hoping a lot of people would watch it, and they didn't, and then it got canceled, and my tiny heart
Right.
got broke.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love the characters and all that other stuff, and that actually makes me think of something else I like to complain about when it comes to like the Muppet stuff
Okay.
is whenever I look at a lot of Muppets humor and all this other stuff, a lot of the fan made content is making the Muppets do bad things, right?
Mm,
Because the characters are all like mostly wholesome, but they hint at suggestive things, but they never actually do it,
right.
right?
Right.
So if your mind was already in the gutter, they're meeting you halfway,
Right.
right? But they never actually say it. It's kind of got this, even back in like the 70s and stuff, it had this wholesomeness to it where they did allude to some, chaotic things or some inappropriate things, but they never actually went out and said those things.
Right.
And then you look at what the content people are making on their own with like Muppets and stuff, they're making them say bad words or shoot people with guns or all this other stuff. And I'm just sitting here like,
What's the
is this what
Bert and
people want?
Ernie skit where they're like dun 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 dun, and they're saying it's like all oh god, I can't think of it. But basically it's like them on the streets and they talk about and it's like a song and oh my fucking god, what is it?
I think that one may have missed me,
Oh,
right?
that's it's so funny. Hold on.
But I feel like an old man though, because I'm just like kids these days. Back in my day, Muppets were wholesome and we loved it, right? And like that's why it always kind of I don't know. I feel like I know a lot of these skits are pretty funny, and I don't want to take away from the comedy of these sketches,
Mhm.
right? Especially like the parodies and the spoofs, like putting Bert and Ernie on the street, making them gangsters, or or other things like that, right? I'm
Right.
not trying to take away from that, but what I'm saying is, um, we all had this weird thing on the internet where all of us were really into inappropriate and hyper violent stuff, like on Newgrounds and all this
Oh,
other stuff.
E-Bombs World, yeah.
Yeah, and nobody ever really seems to reflect on that weird part of phase in our life where we just consumed so much of that content in a short period of time and then stopped. So when stuff like that reminds us of this hyper violent or weird, taking a wholesome thing and turning it gangster, or like the Kill Barney thing or
Yeah.
whatever else, it's just I'm like I guess I'm getting older and I'm just like, to me I feel like that's a low bar for
Oh,
comedy.
100%.
Like it's so easy to take a cute wholesome character and turn it evil, right? Instead of making something that's genuinely funny with wholesome material. I think that's the real challenge.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. And it is also because we're getting older. But I
Right.
agree with what you're saying. 100%. Um, okay, so then we're talking about Muppets. So let's talk about like comics and cartoons. So where do
Right.
you want to stand on that ground? Like I can't just search comics and cartoons. Where are we at?
Let's put Garfield in there.
Okay.
Let's put Garfield. So, um I watched a lot of TV and played a lot of video games when I was a kid. I was basically raised by the TV screen more or less. And I was just learning how to draw, and the way that I drew everything at first was like to trace it or whatever. I even had my piece of paper up on a TV screen and tracing it off of the TV, so I can
Yes.
get the perfect Sonic the Hedgehog or whatever else. But I always looked forward to the Sunday funnies where I'd be able to see Garfield, Heathcliff, Dennis the Menace, Charlie Brown and the Peanuts, and all that other stuff. And I mean, I'll admit it, even then, most of the jokes went over my head, or I was just like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
But it was colorful and it looked funny and all this other stuff. And Garfield was my favorite one growing up. And so basically Sonic the Hedgehog and Garfield were the two characters that I practiced drawing the most when I was younger. And to the point where I didn't need to look at the picture of them anymore to copy it off of them. I could just draw them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And I'd look forward and seeing all this other stuff. And the fact that Garfield had the animated cartoon was also very helpful. I really loved watching that one as well.
Those are funny.
Uh, though I'll admit, like, uh, going back the farm friends part of that show,
Mhm.
the Garfield. and friends part.
Right.
Like when I was a kid, I was just like, whatever, I don't care about these guys, right? So I only wanted to see Garfield and Odie and Nermal and all those other characters. I want to see John get mad. Uh, like,
That's great.
like that's all I wanted to see. Like what, as soon as the pig showed up and the duck with the floaty, I was just like, oh, get me off of this farm.
I
Um,
love Odie. Odie's my
o-
favorite.
Odie is great, but he deserved every kick. I'm sorry.
I'm a cat person, so that makes sense.
Right. But yeah, I loved the cartoon, that even the comics were great. And so usually as a gift, I was very hard to gift for because I never really asked or wanted for much unless it was a video game. I put circles around it. Like,
Right.
so I ended up getting a lot of like Garfield anthologies,
Hmm.
as a gift for like Christmas or birthdays or whatever. So I would just sit there, open up these books, and read years and years worth of Garfields all the time, just going through. One of my favorite running gags you know, is Garfield finding new ways to kick Odie off the table. Um, Garfield usually hanging out, but sometimes picking on mice. You don't see that too much.
Hmm.
Garfield also, um, like I know he hates Mondays, but he also hates spiders. And there's so many comics of Garfield just completely destroying and decimating spiders. And just a slapstick comedy for him trying to find ways to trap a spider into a newspaper and smacking it or whatever.
Right.
Like there's so many different versions of it. And a lot of people like to criticize Garfield because of the weak puns or the gags or whatever, but there was a lot of slapstick that me as a kid was just all about, especially with
Right.
like Tom and Jerry. I loved
Hmm.
those cartoons, the old Looney Tunes and all that other stuff. So Garfield had a lot of that too, but you just didn't get to see it very much.
Right.
Um but the Peanuts comics, I would read those. The Dennis the Menaces. Um, my favorite Garfield comic strip in particular. I don't remember when this one came out, but it was the one that I laughed the hardest with, and I didn't stop talking about it for 2 months until my mom told me to be quiet. And it was a slapstick one, and Garfield just tied up a mouse in some string, and then he pulled the string, and then and then John is just sitting there holding a coffee mug, and you see a mouse just come off the side, just going spin, 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 and lands next to his cup, and he stops and he looks dizzy, and the mouse goes and he barfs in the coffee cup, and then and then it's just like Garfield, right? But just the image of the mouse just leaning over and going herk, like right into the coffee mug. Like I don't know how old I was, but I was probably like 10 years old. I don't know. I just laughed my head off. And that is imprinted. That particular comic is imprinted in my soul. Like
I love
it's not
that.
even the most clever Garfield comic that there was, but something about that one just struck me, and it inspired me to want to draw comics and so the combination of me trying to draw my own Sonic the Hedgehog characters, Garfield, maybe the X-Men and Spider-Man helped a lot too. I just sat there and I practiced drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing, and I wanted to be the next Jim Davis,
Yeah.
the next Charles Schultz. I wanted to be in the funnies. I wanted to draw those comics, and I actually got a job. Well, not a job. I was awarded the position of staff cartoonist for my high school newspaper.
Oh.
So I drew comics for every newspaper for 3 years, and I had a blast doing it. I had a character based off of my childhood dog named Sammy. He was a border collie mutt, and he had a foil character which was also based off of a pet that I used to have, who was a hedgehog. I had a pet hedgehog for a short period of time, and his name was Gumbo. So Sammy and Gumbo had a similar Garfield versus Odie type situation, except Gumbo was the smarter of the two.
Okay.
uh, but they would play pranks and stuff on each other. And one of the first comics that I wrote based off of this kind of rivalry is that Gumbo was kind of a chunky hedgehog. Um, and uh, man, I feel bad that I forgot like the setup for it. But basically, it was just like a Wile E. Coyote type situation where Gumbo was sitting on one end of a seesaw, and Sammy the dog was going to jump on the other hand and land him up. But what ended up happening was it was basically like a diving board situation where Gumbo was so heavy that the seesaw bent into a parabola and then put Sammy right into the ceiling. And then Sammy said something about, "Hey, let's talk about some New Year's resolutions." Uh, so to try to inspire Gumbo to become more fit.
Right.
Uh, but that was like the first strip that I ever made
That's
of the Sammy,
amazing.
and then I went on, and Sammy would became the cartoon mascot for the school newspaper, basically. Well, I just had his comic featured, and there's some human characters there too to relate to students because one of them was supposed to be a cartoon version of me,
Right.
and then I made up like a cartoon version of my friends and other things like that. And there are a lot of jokes about the cartoon version of me being a big nerd and getting dumped or getting rejected by girls, or the kind of stuff that
Right.
high schoolers would deal with or whatever. So it just basically became my thing. And I remember for my final issue I did like the farewell Sammy thing where just the dog and the Gumbo were just in the first panel saying, I hate saying goodbyes,
Right.
and it was about the character that's supposed to be me graduating, and the characters and his friends are right next to him, all wearing their cap and gown, going, "Man, I can't wait. We're gonna go to college, and we're going to study real hard, and we're gonna get a job, and then we're gonna get to pay bills and all this other stuff. Oh man, I can't wait for all these new responsibilities. Well, how about you?" And then he already left the seat. He doesn't want to graduate anymore. He doesn't want
Aw.
those responsibilities. Like all that
Oh,
was left is the cap and gown and an empty seat. Like he's
right.
gone.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that you
Uh,
did that.
Yeah. Ooh, that reminds me. I have to tell this story every single time I talk about my high school newspaper career.
Okay.
So for my senior year, I was given half of a page of a newspaper, which is a lot of real estate,
Yeah.
to draw a Where's Waldo scene. But we replaced it with the school mascot, which was a wildcat,
Okay.
right? We called him Willie the Wildcat. So we made it Where's Willie? And I had him dressed up with the striped hat and the shirt and whatever, and you had to find him in the scene. So it was a Christmas theme where there's snow, it's North Pole, candy canes, and I just filled it with characters, right? And I did little challenges. So you need to find all the elves, you have to find all of the sleds, and just hit all those things in the pictures and all this
Right.
other stuff. And I passed these out during the lunch period to all the freshmen and all this other stuff. And I even saw some of the freshmen take out highlighters, and they're trying to find all the things on there. And I'm sitting here like, oh, this is so cute. It's a shame that I never put Willie in there. Right. So people would come up to me for like a week or so after, just like, yo, I can't find Willie. I'm like, oh, actually, I did some studies on optical illusions. Do you notice how these two corners of the picture are more crowded and these two are less crowded? Yeah, that's supposed to trick your eyes. So it's going to make it harder for you to find Willie. And they're like, oh, okay. So about a month later, I had to fess up that I didn't put Willie in there.
Yeah.
So I caught a little flack for that, and I apologize or whatever. So for the final page of my final year, they gave me a whole page to do
Wow.
to do a sequel, and I drew the busiest scene, and it was supposed to be like the school. There was something we called the Commons, and it was basically the main foyer where all the things connected. Is where all the students hung out before classes started. So I did like a bunch of different high school cliques. Like I put a little the punk rock group over here. I put some cheerleaders over there. But then I also put as many cartoon characters I could think of to put in there. Think Jack Skellington. I put Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. He was in there. Why not? Like, I put all the characters in there with the one exception to avoid Disney if possible. At that
Right.
time, I did not know that Jack Skellington was owned by Touchstone, which was owned by Disney at that time. I had no
Right.
idea.
Right.
That was my only mistake in retrospect. I did everything just minus Disney. So no Mickey, no anything else, but all the other characters. So we had Daffy Duck, we had Bugs Bunny. I just fill it top to bottom. I put little tiny caricatures of my friends in there. I put all this other stuff. I put my comic book characters, Sammy and Gumbo, were hidden in there. And and I also made jokes about the high school in there, like the Sprite remix machine that never worked. for the
Oh,
vending
okay.
machines. You remember Sprite Remix?
Yeah.
Uh, it tasted like Skittles and water. Anyway, so just filled it up and did the same challenge. You had to find like 20 bottles of Coke on the ground. You had to do all this other stuff, and I handed those papers out, and I guaranteed to people that I finally did put Willie in there, right? I did put Willie in there. I put him in there 20 times, and I did not, and they're identical. You could not tell them apart. So I got to watch people fighting over which Willie was the real one. So they're all the real one.
That's perfect. Oh, I wish I could troll the school like that. That's
It
fantastic.
was fun. It was great. But yeah, so Garfield, Sonic, all that other stuff really inspired me to want to become like a cartoonist, or an animator or anything else like that. So I spend a lot of time practicing how to draw, and that's a big part of my life still. Even though I don't have a comic right now,
Yeah,
I still love to draw.
I do. I love your drawings when they pop up on your stream. I love seeing
Well,
every single
well,
one of
thank you.
them. They're so good. You're so good.
Oh no, stop.
Keep going, but stop. But keep
But no,
going.
no, no,
Yeah,
no. No, I'm all right. It's okay.
yeah. All right. So now we're going to talk about one of my favorites, which is Ben and Jerry's non-dairy,
Yes.
because I love the brownie cookie dough non-dairy Ben and Jerry's.
Ooh.
That's my favorite one.
All right. I have a hard time choosing my favorite one. There's so many. What I don't understand is why some grocery stores carry some flavors and other groceries don't do the others. That drives me bananas.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I gave up dairy like almost 10 years ago, and it was a tough trying to find like tasty desserts because, you know, at that time there weren't that many good alternatives.
Mhm.
Like, here, have some sorbet. I'm like, I don't want your frozen juice. I'm sick
Right.
of it. Give me
Right.
some chocolate, right? Uh, so I finally came across the Ben and Jerry's, and I found some flavors that I liked, and oh man, I love it so much. I think my favorite one is the PB and cookie. That's what they call it.
Ooh.
It's basically cookies and cream with the salty peanut butter swirled through it.
Oh, I love the cores where they have the cores of like salted caramel and peanut butter and all that stuff. It's in the middle, right?
Right. So this one's just the peanut butter, but there
Mhm.
are some other flavors with, that I also like. The fish food is also really good. That's the
Mhm.
chocolate one with the marshmallow swirl,
Mhm.
and the little
Little
tiny fish.
fish. Yeah.
Yeah. The Colin Kaepernick flavor was also really good, and that one's pretty interesting. It's called Change the World. But world is spelled like
Oh, HIRL.
WHIRLD. Yeah.
Got it.
And that one is not made with the almond milk alternative like most of the other ones are. This one's made from sunflower seed milk. So it's I tried it, and I think it's super delicious.
Interesting. I didn't even know you could get that milk.
I didn't know either until I saw it, and apparently sunflower butter is a thing. Like, you can actually buy tubs of it, sunflower butter.
I know
Uh,
sunflower oil, but I just didn't
right.
think about butters and creams.
Exactly. It blew my mind. I was just like, "There's no way they made a sunflower, huh?" And I tried it, and I was just like, "Okay, this is good."
Yeah.
If I had to describe it, it's more savory version of the fake ice cream that they use.
Okay.
So it's not like saltier, but it's a little bit. You can kind of. I don't want to say it's like an oily ice cream, but it does kind of have that oiliness to it.
Right.
But it's not bad because of the way the other flavors that are swirled into it. It complements the flavor, so it's pretty good. So if you don't have a sunflower seed allergy or whatever, I would recommend trying that one and seeing what you think. If you don't like it, then I will apologize, but that's one of
Oh
my
yeah.
top 4 flavors.
That's amazing. Have you ever been to the headquarters?
I haven't. No.
It smells so good in there.
I'm jealous.
It smells so good. And then I got a Ben and Jerry's bear with it like at the end of it. But yeah. That was a real fun trip. That was
Is that in Vermont?
uh-huh.
I want to go.
Yeah, let's go together. Let's go to a
Okay,
Vermont
cool.
trip. Yeah,
All right, cool.
I'm
All
with you.
right. Perfect.
Let's talk about horses because I have to know why this is on your dislike list. This is so funny to me.
Horses. It's you know what's so funny is we briefly talked about horses a tiny bit at the very beginning when we talked about the Barbie horse riding
Right,
game.
right.
Like horses in games, sure, whatever, right? The concept of horses, fine. Are they cute or did they look nice? Sure, great. But they're deadly. So the real reason is that I was dating somebody for a very long time that was into horses.
Hmm.
They were a classic horse girl.
Okay.
So like they wrote horse fan fiction, um, and not like based off of like a franchise like My Little Ponies or something. No, like they role played as horses, like on internet forums and stuff.
Okay.
Um, and that's a whole nother topic. That gets deep.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I was around horses for a long period of time because whenever we went over to their parents' house, like they had land there where they had horses in the back, and and she would train the horses like in the round pen. They did all this different stuff about like she even learned how to become a farrier, which is the name of a person who trims the horse hooves.
Okay.
Um, and there was a different style of fairing because most of the time when you do the fairing, they trim the horse hooves, which are just basically giant fingernails.
Yeah.
Um, and then they put the shoes on them.
Right.
But she believed that the shoes are no good because wild horses don't have shoes. Why do our horses do? And most of the reason why they have those the shoes is because of streets and other things like that to protect the horse or wherever.
Right.
But how do wild horses that run on, rocky plains deal with this, right? Well, because they run around all the time and naturally keeps their feet trimmed
Right.
and they're fine. So if you cut their fingernails in a way that mimics how nature is supposed to do it down, they won't need shoes.
Okay.
And there's a science to it. I know I'm geeking out about. I had to learn all this stuff when I was dating this person,
Of
so
course. Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is that like if you've how have you been near a horse before? Like
Yeah.
how close to a horse have you been?
I've ridden a horse before.
Right, but okay. So I am scared of them. This is kind of a fear because they're huge, they're
Mm-hmm.
tall.
Right.
I was forced to ride a few times, and each time I was on it, I felt like I wasn't in control. And if I'm not in control of something, I freak out.
Yeah, I get
Right?
that.
It's a car that has a mind of its own. How is that not scaring anybody else?
Right.
At any given moment in time, if you're on a horse and a bag from Kroger's flies into the forest, you're dead. Right? Like anything could scare a horse and make it flip over and then you're gone, right?
Yeah.
If somebody makes a weird noise, that horse is in a life or death situation all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for training horses for police and stuff, they make them bomb proof to the point where they wouldn't even react to a bomb.
Right.
A lot of training is involved to make a horse like behave, but even then, like if you like those little plastic tarps from like a not tarps but like the sham wows from the car wash,
Yeah.
right? If you try getting a horse to walk through those, they won't do it, right? It's life or death.
Right.
So they'll try to train them to walk through weird things or all this other stuff. But horses are trained to think everything is out. I mean, horses nature, their core nature is everything is out to kill it,
Right.
right? Because they're a prey animal and all this other stuff. So
Right.
all this other stuff. So imagine this thing that is like 8 feet tall, 3 times heavier than you are, probably 10 times heavier than you are. I don't know. They're at least 1,000 or more pounds. So yeah, definitely more than like 10 times. I don't. They're huge.
Yeah, they're big.
If horses knew how easy it would be to destroy a human, I they just not smart enough to know. At any moment, if you're near them, they could just turn around and put a hoof in your face and you're gone. Like
Bada bing, bada
that
boom.
that scares the heck out of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, they're very expensive and hard to deal with, and they're extremely fragile and they take up your entire life, blah blah blah. But like if a horse trips and stuff or trips on something, and it hurts its leg, that horse is gone,
Yep.
right? If the horse sleeps weird, it's gone. If there's a horse that bites into a fence the wrong way and sucks in the air to get high, that's actually a thing.
Okay. Okay.
Horses figured out a way to get high is by breathing in a certain way by biting into a fence. It's called cribbing. Um, If they do that too long, they'll give themselves brain damage and then they're gone. So like horses are extremely fragile, but they're also extremely deadly, and for that, I am scared of them. So if those horses don't get you, the horse owners will. Like it's just
I mean, I can't understand that. That makes sense. My family had horses at a racetrack. They had their own farm for horses, and we had a place called Freehold Racetrack, and it was all horses and stuff like that. And my dad actually cleaned the driver's clothes. That was his job, was to run maintenance in the men's lounge
okay.
area, and so he would clean their clothes in between stuff because obviously they get all gross. There was two queen size beds in the back room in case the drivers wanted to sleep. There was an entire like eatery. There was a sauna, like this whole area, and it was all for these drivers. And so I got to learn a little bit more about jockeys and horses because I lived around them when my dad was going to work and I was sick or something and I had to go with them and I bring my
Right.
Barbies. Then yeah, so yeah, I've been around horses for a while. I rode one. His name was Robert Redford,
That's
and
a good name.
yeah, and
That's one thing I do like about horses is their names are
names.
fantastic.
Yeah, and so eventually I was like, this isn't for me, and I don't want to come back to this, like to ride them. And my
Hmm.
cousins are like, okay, and I was like, okay, and then I never rode one ever again.
Good.
So yeah, I
They're
kind of
dangerous.
believe you that
Stay
they're
away.
dangerous, but man, watching them on the track is freaking crazy. It's crazy.
It- I've been to a few horse races too. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting,
Yeah.
but like that's the other thing. The more you know about certain things too, is like I don't know. It's a huge bummer. Like the more that you know about like a lot of the horse racing industry and
Yeah.
how they're bred and what happens to the ones that don't do good and all the
Mm-hmm.
other stuff, it's a bummer. But what's good is that there's a lot more things set up now to support horses that are former racers
Right.
and other things
Rehabilitation
like that.
centers.
Well, because they didn't have those rehab centers a while back, but they do now, which is great.
Yeah.
So that's good for them. Like as an animal, I appreciate them, but as a human next to the animal, I'm scared to death.
No, everything you're saying makes total sense. I totally think that that makes lots of sense. So we have like about 10 minutes here, and
Oh,
so
man,
we're
time flew.
yeah. So we're gonna talk about the great old state of New Jersey.
Joyzy. Yeah,
Born and
everybody loves
raised,
Joyzy.
yeah, born and raised for 19 years in my home state. And I saw you put Jersey vacations, and I was like, we're ending on this topic.
Good. I'm glad. I'll be honest. I kind of baited that. I
Oh, of course
knew.
you
I.
did. I'm not dumb. I just yeah. Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
So both sides of my family are from Jersey,
Okay.
right? So my dad grew up around the Toms River area,
Awesome.
and my mom grew up around the Spring Lake area.
Okay.
So and they met there. All my aunts and uncles are there. And my mom has a tons of brothers and sisters, so there's a tons of aunts and uncles up there.
Mhm.
And but the thing is that we were the family that moved away the furthest, the soonest, right?
Right.
So my family moved down the coast, around the corner, and we ended up in Texas, right? And everyone else was still in the New Jersey or at least in the Northeast somewhere, right? So when they were able to hang out and with cousins and all this other stuff, and
Mhm.
while we were very far away, so we didn't get to see our relatives that often. So my mom missed her family a lot, so we went on a lot of road trips up to Jersey, right?
Right.
And so it took us about 2 days every time to drive up there and 2 days to drive back. And we'd usually stay for at least a week, and we would go to the beaches there.
Mhm.
Our whole family is in love with the beaches there because
Seaside, Point Pleasant,
all those Manasquan,
uh,
those beaches are great, and Spring Lake, all that other
Keensburg.
stuff.
What about Keensburg?
I don't remember Kingsburg very
Okay,
much,
that's fine. I was just
but yeah,
curious.
Point Pleasant, Manasquan, and Spring Lake were probably the top three beaches that we would go to.
Mhm.
Um, and we would go every almost every year, and then every other year we would always go up to the Jersey Shore, to the beach. We'd go to the boardwalk, the proper boardwalks, right? Because in Texas, there's this place called Kima that's supposed to be a boardwalk, and it's inspired. But the thing is that like I've been to a real boardwalk. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So when I went to this imitation boardwalk, I was offended. I was just like, "Where's the funnel?"
Right. Yeah. Give me those fried
Right?
Oreos or everyone gets it, you know?
Right. Where? Give me the pizza.
The
You know, the boardwalk
Zeppelis.
pizza.
Do you ever have
Give me
Zeppelis?
Zeppelis. I believe I have,
Oh,
but
they're just delicious. They're kind of like funnel cakes, but in like balls.
oh, that's oh my gosh.
So
Okay.
good.
I love that. All the this carnival snacks, all the games naturally, the arcade machines, the claw machines, the getting the tickets, all that other stuff, the rides that they had set up there too, like all that stuff. So you go to Kima, they have like two rides. I mean, they did build one roller coaster at least, and the roller coaster's fine.
Yeah.
But it was basically like a Landry's food boardwalk. So you
Mm-hmm.
had like the like Eat at Joe's Crab Shack, Landry's, and
Mm.
whatever same company, just three of them next to each other with a wooden boardwalk between them, and like two rides and maybe one carnival game, and that's it. And I'm sitting here like they don't even
Shame.
they didn't even have saltwater taffy.
What?
It's not a boardwalk without taffy.
I
It's
completely
not a
agree.
it's not a boardwalk without the burgers that are excellent when you're there, but after the fact weren't that great. Like
No, it's all about the pizza.
the pizza is the ultimate boardwalk snack, but like that's the other thing. Have you ever had Five Guys before? Five Guys burgers and fries?
Okay, yeah, Five Guys burgers and fries. Yeah,
To
okay.
me, that tastes like a Jersey boardwalk burger. I'm sorry.
It
I'm
does.
sorry. Yeah,
I
I'm
agree.
sorry if anyone disagrees, but that's just a Jersey boardwalk burger. It's not any better. It's not any worse. It's just a Jersey boardwalk burger. People talking to me like it's fine dining. It is not. It is a boardwalk burger.
It is a boardwalk burger. I completely agree. Yeah, we really like Five Guys. Um, when you first asked me, though, I didn't know what you were asking. So I'm glad you said burgers and fries because.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You like Five Guys? Like, name them. Which Five Guys are you talking about? I know a
Which.
Michael. I know a Brandon. What are you talking? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Oops.
um,
But yeah, we had long road trips to go up to Jersey every time. We loved the trips. All of our relatives up there and family reunions and all that other stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm planning on going again for another family reunion this year.
Yay.
So I'm always happy to visit the Jersey Shore, where I always have to build an elaborate sand sculpture every single time I'm there.
Okay.
Um, so like a hand, like a giant hand in the sand, the size of like a toddler. Uh, Giant little race cars in the sand, like all the effort that I put into a drawing, like I'll put it into my little sand
Sand
sculptures on the beach,
sculptures.
and people will walk by and take a picture of it, and I'm like, yeah, you can see my crack, but I don't care. um but it's just applying tons and tons of sun lotion on me because I burn like a lobster.
Same.
uh so it's great, and the temperature of the water isn't too cold. I remember I visited the West Coast a while back for the very first time. I hopped in that water. It is colder than ice.
Mm-hmm.
It's too cold. And then you look at everyone swimming in the water, they're all wearing wetsuits. I'm like,
Suits.
okay, that's why.
Yep.
It's too cold in the Pacific, but the Atlantic right there,
Nice
right
and
at New
warm.
Jersey, perfect temperature for a hot day. It's
Mm-hmm.
cold, but the refreshing kind of cold.
Yep.
And I love it. And the beach and the waves are just big enough so you could body surf on them. Man, I love just riding the waves in. I'm just big beach nerd because of all the Jersey trips that I grew up on. And all the boardwalk food, all the other stuff, just the whole thing, like it always brings back the best memories. Whenever now when we just fly up there, and whenever I get off the plane and we drive and we take sometimes I take the Jersey Transit all the way down to like Manasquan or something,
Yeah.
and then take like an Uber to get to the beach house. But as soon as I get off the train and I smell the sea salt in the air, I'm just like, yes,
I have
this is it.
arrived. Yeah.
I have arrived.
The problem is when you fly into Newark, the smell is far different.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
smell
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Newark is just
No, that's
disgusting.
definitely not my favorite part of the trip.
I
Is
know.
is the Newark airport? Oh no, 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 no,
That's
no.
why I fly into Philly.
You're flying to Philly now? Okay.
Because
Maybe we should do
it's
that.
literally halfway for where I live between New York and Philadelphia is where I live, so I can go to
Uh-huh.
either airport. I can go to LaGuardia if I
Okay.
want to.
Right.
But I go to Philly because it's a smaller airport. It's much easier to get through, and it's fast. You're in, you're
Perfect.
out, no problems, and it's
I
you can go up to the beach.
I should consider this
It's cheaper
because
too.
I I haven't got my tickets yet, so this might be a good idea.
Yeah,
So,
check Southwest and check Philadelphia.
okay, perfect. Thank you. I will definitely check that probably after this interview. uh, but yeah, I love those trips so much. But the other thing that you have to consider is we used to drive up there almost every
Ooh.
summer, and I have six brothers and sisters,
Oh my God, what were
and
you
so
in?
there'd be the nine of us in like a van, all crammed shoulder to shoulder into there. And we had special road trip rules where you would take your hands up like this and jam your elbows into your sides as hard as you can. If you hit somebody, that means they're sitting close to you, too close. So you do the elbow check and you have to do the headroom check where you swing your elbows this way. If you hit anybody, they're too close, right?
Yeah,
The other thing is that there's not enough seats for nine people in most of these cars. You have two rows of three
right.
and two in the front. That's eight. So one child would have to sit in the way, way back. That's what we called it. But it'd be
I
the
called
space in
that
the back of the.
too. The way
Yeah.
way
The
back.
way, way back. That's right. Like in the Suburban or whatever we were
Mhm.
driving in. And you were on drink duty. So you got to lay down, right? Because there's all the luggage was on on the top of the car.
Right.
Uh, and whoever sat in the back, you had the privilege of like sitting on a blanket or something and just chilling, and you wouldn't have anyone hitting you or bothering you or breathing on you or doing anything else. But if anyone was thirsty, it was your duty to open up the cooler and pass out the Capri Sun or whatever it was.
Oh, I don't
So
care. I did in the backpack. I don't care. I'd hand
I
out
was
drinks.
at first that sounds great, but later on when you can't get you're trying to nod off, and then someone goes like, I need a Capri Sun me. I was just like, oh, right? But silver lining on every rainbow,
Right.
right? Well, I've even ruined my phrase. I said silver lining on every playbook. There we go.
Okay.
Uh, so anyway, there's pros and cons to all the different positions in the car, but I just want to wrap this whole thing up with Spice Girls
Oh
one
my
more
God,
time
please.
because later on the road trips to keep my younger sister entertained, we set up a car. We set up a portable TV
Mhm.
that had a VHS player built into it, and it was powered by the car charger. And we even built a really rickety wooden stand to hold it up between the driver's seat and the passenger seat,
Mhm.
and that way we could watch Spice World
100
on
times.
our car trips 100,000
It's the
times,
best
right?
movie. Why wouldn't you?
So, well, I mean, I admit it. I didn't hate watching it, but I would say we watched a lot of it, right? Um, but my little sister loved watching Spice World over and over again. The thing is that we're sitting behind, looking at the TV or whatever. But this particular television set, the speakers weren't on the front of the television. The speakers were on the sides.
Oh.
So whoever was the passenger and the driver
Oh
had to
no.
listen to Spice World at max volume blaring directly into their ear for 8 hours at a
Ooh.
time.
No.
And we could barely hear it because the sound was going to the front. So we'd be like, turn it up. And whoever was driving would be like, it's already up. So that is basically our Spice World adventure.
Yes.
Uh that's kind of ties into the New Jersey trips a bit because for at least a good two or three of those trips were punctuated by Spice World. They started with Spice World and they ended with Spice World, and maybe a little bit of Ernest Goes to Jail in the middle.
That's funny. Yeah, I was thinking there's only two girls. There's four of you. How did you lose?
Oh, the youngest, she was the youngest. She was the baby.
Uh-huh.
So
So,
you had to appease the baby.
yeah, I was the baby, so I get it. I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. This has been a great interview. It's been so much fun. You are a blast.
No, you.
No, you. We have a lot in common, which is pretty sweet. And I loved having you on here.
It was a pleasure, and I enjoyed every little bit of it. I was hyper nervous. I knew I had no reason to be nervous, and you definitely proved I had no reason to be nervous because I had a
Absolutely.
blast.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. We are gonna go ahead and turn ourselves over. I didn't even feel it. Turn ourselves over to your old dad, because he will be on next week.
Oh, cool.
So, let me just do this. Hold on. Okay, I feel better now. Okay, so here we go. We're going on a raid.
Ooh, going on a raid. Oh
And
yeah.
this is the raid call. Again, guys, thank you so much for being around. Thank you for coming to Wiki Wednesday. I hope to see you next week. MK, thank you so much for being an awesome guest.
All right, thank you so much for inviting me. I had a blast.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're sending it on over. Here we go. Raid now. 3, 2, raid.